Knoxville is a city in, and the county seat of, Knox County in the U.S. state of Tennessee. As of July 1, 2019, Knoxville's population was 187,603, making it the largest city in the East Tennessee Grand Division, and the state's overall third largest city after Nashville and Memphis. Knoxville is the principal city of the Knoxville Metropolitan Statistical Area, which had an estimated population of 869,046 in 2019. First settled in 1786, Knoxville was the first capital of Tennessee. The city struggled with geographic isolation throughout the early 19th century. The arrival of the railroad in 1855 led to an economic boom. During the Civil War, the city was bitterly divided over the secession issue, and was occupied alternately by both Confederate and Union armies. Following the war, Knoxville grew rapidly as a major wholesaling and manufacturing center. The city's economy stagnated after the 1920s as the manufacturing sector collapsed. The downtown area declined and city leaders became entrenched in highly partisan political fights. Hosting the 1982 World's Fair helped reinvigorate the city, and revitalization initiatives by city leaders and private developers have had major successes in spurring growth in the city, especially the downtown area. Knoxville is the home of the flagship campus of the University of Tennessee, whose sports teams, the Tennessee Volunteers, are popular in the surrounding area. Knoxville is also home to the headquarters of the Tennessee Valley Authority, the Tennessee Supreme Court's courthouse for East Tennessee, and the corporate headquarters of several national and regional companies. As one of the largest cities in the Appalachian region, Knoxville has positioned itself in recent years as a repository of Appalachian culture and is one of the gateways to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. The first people to form substantial settlements in what is now Knoxville were indigenous people, who arrived during the Woodland period. One of the oldest artificial structures in Knoxville is a burial mound constructed during the early Mississippian culture period. The earthwork mound has been preserved, but the campus of the University of Tennessee developed around it. Other prehistoric sites include an early woodland habitation area at the confluence of the Tennessee River and Knob Creek. By the 18th century, the Cherokee, an Iroquoian language people, had become the dominant tribe in the East Tennessee region. They are believed to have migrated centuries before from the Great Lakes area. They were consistently at war with the Creek and Shawnee. The Cherokee people called the Knoxville area Kuwandathaluni, which means Mulberry Place. Most Cherokee habitation in the area was concentrated in what the American colonists called the overhill settlements along the Little Tennessee River, southwest of Knoxville. The first white traders and explorers were recorded as arriving in the Tennessee Valley in the late 17th century. There is significant evidence that Spanish explorer Hernando de Soto visited Bustle Island in 1540. The first major recorded Euro-American presence in the Knoxville area was the Timberlake expedition, which passed through the confluence of the Holston and French Broad into the Tennessee River in December 1761. Henry Timberlake, an Anglo-American emissary from the British colonies to the overhill settlements along the Little Tennessee River, recalled being pleased by the deep waters of the Tennessee after his party had struggled down the relatively shallow Holston for several weeks. The end of the French and Indian War and confusion brought about by the American Revolution led to a drastic increase in Euro-American settlement west of the Appalachians. By the 1780s, white settlers were already established in the Holston and French Broad valleys. The U.S. Congress ordered all illegal settlers out of the valley in 1785. But with little success. As settlers continued to trickle into Cherokee lands, tensions between the settlers and the Cherokee rose steadily. In 1786, James White, a Revolutionary War officer, and his friend James Conner built White's Fort near the mouth of First Creek, on land White had purchased 3 years earlier. In 1790, White's son-in-law, Charles McClung, who had arrived from Pennsylvania the previous year, surveyed White's holdings between First Creek and Second Creek for the establishment of a town. McClung drew up 64 0.5-acre lots. The waterfront was set aside for a town common. 2 lots were set aside for a church and graveyard. 4 lots were set aside for a school. That school was eventually chartered as Blunt College, and it served as the starting point for the University of Tennessee, which uses Blunt College's founding date of 1794 as its own. Also in 1790, President George Washington appointed North Carolina surveyor William Blunt governor of the newly created territory south of the River Ohio. One of Blunt's first tasks was to meet